So it's the 20th of November, 2024. We're here on Sacred Segments. It's been a while. Great to see everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Alexis Constantinou, and tonight's focus is reincarnation. And we have with us Dr. GiGi. Thank you for being here. And welcome everyone that's on the call. Other people will be joining us. Let's start with some introductions. My name is Alexis Constantinou. I'm a singer with an interest in metaphysics and healing. I've been interested in this field maybe in my early 20s. I used to be a member of a society called the Ethereal Society, where I learned about psychic development, healing, metaphysics, and I think through being a singer, I kind of always lit up the higher part of my consciousness, if you like, and that deepened my interest in the spiritual field. That's a little bit about me. The reason I set up Sacred Segments a long time ago, many years ago, it started in my home, and I won't go into the story because it's quite a long story, but I'll cut a long story short. A tree told me to gather people together, and the tree would heal the people.
Wow.
And it was a cedar tree, and it was a very, very magical experience for me. And I used to live in this beautiful place which had a huge space that was a ballroom. My apartment was a ballroom. And so I had the space at the time to gather all of these people together, and they were all actors. And we were focusing on the law of attraction particularly. And everybody got lead parts on TV. They all either got into films or on television in one way or another, commercial work or whatever. And at the end of it, I thought, wow, everybody's doing these incredible things apart from me. So, now it's my turn. My relationship broke down, and I left that place. But I met a man who I'm married to now, and who was on a world tour. And he asked me to go on tour with him. And I went all over the world. For 3 years, I was living out of a suitcase. Never thought that I would travel the world, but I did. I'm back now. And, hit upon hard times, but my spiritual life is very rich. My musical life is very rich. And for me, that is wealth. It's not about money. It's about people. It's about, soul richness. So that's one of the reasons that we're here, because of my interest in metaphysics. And I wanted to create a platform for other people to share and for me to learn with everyone else. And here we are. So just a little bit about me. I'm going to ask you to go next, Carl.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carl Preisler. I'm from Ireland, of mixed parents from Denmark and Ireland. So I have a bit of European and Irish ancestry going on. I used to work in IT for a global media company, but as an IT director. I retired about 5 years ago and now living in Spain. I've always been kind of interested in the spiritual aspect of life and in the kind of unseen world. As a child, I knew from deep within that this wasn't my first life, even though I didn't have any particular memories. And I was surprised when they started teaching in school that as a Catholic, you weren't allowed to believe in reincarnation. And it was the first time I actually ever heard of the word reincarnation. And I was really surprised to think, well, what do you mean you're not supposed to believe in it? I mean, like, everybody must know that, So my spiritual journey started much later in life because I focused on my studies and I worked hard like a good son of an engineer. But when I moved to London, I started going to the Spiritualist Association in Great Britain, trained in Reiki. And then out of the blue, spirit tapped me on the shoulder and said they wanted me to be a trance medium, which took me by complete surprise. I kind of dared them to, like, okay, then, you know, I'm not just going to take it. You have to, like, give me many other signs, which they did and did and did. So that started my journey. So my main focus now is trance mediumship. I work with my main guide is a guy called Katarang, but I also have the ability to connect with other light beings and star beings as needed. And a lot of that's to bring through philosophy, but also to bring through healing. So like shifting stuck energy through trance. I'm also a trained hypnotherapist, and I enjoy singing as well. And that's about it, really. Ask me any question you like.
Beautiful. We've had some wonderful channeling sessions in the past where Carl has demonstrated his channeling ability, and his guide Katarang has very amazingly come through, and we've been able to ask a lot of questions, and it's been quite amazing. Thank you, Carl, for introducing yourself. I don't know who the other person was that was joining us, but hopefully they will come back. Greta, over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Greta. I'm Norwegian, currently living in Scotland since a couple of months. By training, I'm a biologist. I worked as a toxicologist and environmental manager for many years. And then I got really ill and I needed to heal myself. And when I did, I discovered Bruce Lipton, who for me united science and spirituality, because he is a biologist, so he speaks my language and he explains the law of attraction and how we create our reality on a biological, cellular, chemical level. And since then, I've learned multiple energy healing modalities, and I've become a coach and energy healer. So now I help people figure out what they want and get their subconscious mind in alignment with what they want, and then take the right action steps to get there. So that's me in a very short nutshell.
Great. And Greta has joined us on many past sacred segments, and we've worked together in different ways, and has demonstrated a wonderful depth of knowledge of her healing modalities. Dr. Giovanna, I want to say that I'm very excited about you being here, because I could feel your energy even before this digital introduction. And, you know, I'm very much a person of intuition, and I just know that you have an incredible soul. I know it, I feel it, and I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you.
And I have to say that I feel the same with you. Like my heart just expands and just feels so much joy. Like I feel like I know you. You know, I just feel like you have this humongous heart, and you just love people deeply, and you just love connecting people, and your vision of the tree just means so much to me, because I, like you, I have had mystical experiences with trees, which are sentient beings, which are absolutely wise beyond our own knowledge. And so that connection that you had with that tree, and that communion, and that message that you're able to receive it, that really touches me deeply. Yeah, so I am very grateful that you were open to listen to the wisdom of the tree, and have created this platform for us to connect and to meet other like-minded individuals like Greta and Carl, and everyone get together and share around gifts and share it to everyone that will benefit from it. And even no matter where we are, you know, that is the beauty of it. If we are just different parts of the world. I mean, Northern California. So I am beyond excited to be here. And so, as a short introduction of myself, I'm I was born in Colombia from a family of doctors, so therefore I went to continue with the tradition of being a doctor, and I ended up being a plastic surgeon. So I dedicated, 13 years of my life to study all of that, and I practiced for a while. And I had an awakening. I would say a wake up call, because I was very much like any doctor that you meet out there, very much into science, very I did not wanted to know anything about spirituality, anything that you could not see with your own eyes, until I had a powerful experience with a patient that I did a nose job, and he had a botch nose job before. So he was quite unhappy. It had been 10 years before. He was overweight, he was depressed, and he had diabetes, and the diabetes was uncontrolled, and so he had all these issues. But he came to me just for the aesthetic part of the nose. He had a previous surgery that it did not go well, and so he went to the surgery, and it was a difficult surgery, a 3-hour surgery, and but nothing major. And after the surgery, I immediately felt ill, like drain of energy, a cold that lasted for several weeks, 3 4 weeks. And then when I met him after the month checkup, the man had lost weight and he had looked 10 years younger, and he told me that his diabetes was controlled after many years of not being controlled. And so at that point, which I wasn't skeptical, I used to be jokingly saying, what, like St. Thomas, like I had to put my fingers to want to just believe that it's true. So when I saw him, something just like my whole reality just collapsed. I guess there is something that I was just, that moment when everything stays still, and I was like, oh my God, what just happened here? There was something that I could not explain logically with my rational mind. I knew there was something that I could not explain rationally. So that actually catapulted me into learning about energy healing. And I was like, but I was coming from a place where I want to learn how to do that so that doesn't happen again to me. So I can manage the energetics without taking it on. And it has been quite a long journey. It's been over 13 years, 14 years, that led me to study crystals, which led me to the island of Kauai, where I reconnected with my Lemurian lifetime, and I met my Lemurian teacher, Fate Spina. And then, that's been a training for me for all those years to that's our topic today, to reconnect from my memories. It actually is in our DNA. So it's just go within our DNA, which is light language, and we can get still to actually activate those parts of ourselves, which is interesting because it's not about past lives. Actually, there's no such a thing as past. It could be actually future or past, depending on the point where you're observing it. So that is my introduction.
Wonderful. Just yesterday, you reminded me of something that I read about, which aligns with something that you just said about how it's possible to reincarnate in the past. And I never considered this. What an amazing thought, that because all time exists now. So, to think that we can actually be born in our next life in the past, that's quite mind-boggling in terms of our present, way of thinking.
Yes, they're actually happening simultaneously. There is no such a thing as past or future. We can go into that consciousness and actually be there at that time because it's happening right now. All of them is like seeing like slides, it's all happening simultaneously, and you just actually focusing one of the slides. That is basically what it is.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned your teacher, because she's also someone that I think is our mutual introduction, and how we connected through her. And Faith is also somebody that will be on Sacred Segments in the future. And it's in my calendar to speak with her today about being a future guest. And it's really poignant that you're here. I think it's divinely ordained. And when you mentioned Lemurian times, it's not something I know that much about, but I know that, you know, it was a pre-Atlantean civilization that those of which of us were incarnated at that time could still be here now, right? In a different body. But tell me a little bit about Lemuria and the times of Lemuria, if you would. Could you just give me a little bit of an explanation?
Sure. So again, it is happening right now. It is not past. It's a state of consciousness.
Right.
So that, and Lemuria is coming back because we are returning to that state of consciousness, which the Lemurian consciousness is unity consciousness, where we walk and function as one consciousness. So it means that it's almost like a collective, you know, it's like everything I do affects you in a good, so everyone knows that that is the power that each of us have. So, and we are aware of our connections, so we'll never do anything that will harm you because we know that it will be harming ourselves, if that makes sense. So, and it's the truth. We just actually are in a consciousness that everybody forgot, that every thought, every action that we have actually affects everyone, like a ripple effect, like the butterfly effect, right? And it is the truth. We just forgot about it. That we are not an individual person, that we are like the concept of an island. The island are all connected. We are not island. We are actually the one in different aspects. So that is what is Lemuria.
Okay, thank you for explaining. You know, when you mentioned that, it reminded me of a piece of art that I saw when I was doing some training in California. I did some training called Heal Your Life Workshop Leader Training, which was based on the work of Louise Hay and Shakti Gawain, who wrote Creative Visualization, and Louise Hay wrote You Can Heal Your Life. And it was learning to teach that work. And there was a piece of art that my teacher had, because we, at the end of the whole training, we walked this spiritual maze, and we went to the teacher's ranch. It was her and her husband, they were teaching together, and they had a ranch with this beautiful maze that we walked as part of our spiritual initiation. And in her home, she had these two pieces of art that really struck a chord with me. One of them was the Wizard of Oz, and the characters from the Wizard of Oz, and what they represented, sort of metaphorically speaking. But it wasn't that one. It was the one that was a pyramid from perhaps Atlantean or Lemurian times. But when you were speaking, it reminded me of seeing this piece of art. When I saw this art that was like a pyramid, like a home in those times, or in that realm of consciousness, I felt such a resonance, like I knew it, like it was home. Like I was like, wow, I know that place. That's my home. That's my spiritual home. And when you started talking about Lemuria, and when I've encountered crystals, you know, I feel that same sense of resonance. You know, maybe I'm tuning into the collective energy of that realm of consciousness. I don't know, but it's very interesting and very fascinating. And perhaps we could have a session in the future where we dedicate, the session to exploring that.
Yes.
It's a fascinating topic. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yes, thank
Go
you.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, and that goes to the signs of the resonance of you remembering parts of your lives, and that is, like you said, it's a recognition, a resonance, and then that is how you know that there is a part of you that is connected to that timeline. And it's, again, it's not a rational thing. It's just a feeling like I've been there, like a deja vu. I know that place. And that's a clue for you to bring more of that part of you into this reality, because that part of the parallel regression, actually, I like to call it more integrating your multidimensional self, and have that part of your Lemurian self here and guiding you and actually kind of merging, because it's a higher consciousness, then merging with your higher consciousness while you're here.
That makes sense. So just before I hand over to you to lead your segment, I'd just like to ask you a question and open up to any other questions that come in from anyone else. My question is this: when you encounter something that is difficult to explain because it's beyond words, when you enter that kind of realm where it's nonsensical or beyond words, was there something in your training that you did which helped you to earth that or ground that metaphysical experience? That's my question.
Yes. And it has been many years of training to do that, but what it is that it's actually relinquishing the mind, the logical mind, with, because in logical mind, actually the small mind, what I call it, would never comprehend the vastness of consciousness. So you start integrating that knowingness when you relinquish the small mind, when you don't wish to just stop trying to figure it out. It is that time when you finally know, and it's a cellular knowing where you don't have to explain it, you don't have to figure it out, you just know at the core of your being that this is the truth.
Okay, got you. Thanks, Greta, for your message. I understand, of course. We were recording this session and appreciate that. Thank you for dropping in. Great to see you. What you said, Dr. Giovanna, really does make sense with me, and I've experienced what you're saying. There's a real resonance. That word keeps coming back to me. It's because I feel that, because I know you do too. Sometimes it's possible to speak without words, as I'm sure you all know, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you're going to talk about reincarnation. So, what's your first?
Yeah. So how do we do that? Do we just keep a conversation? You ask me questions, or I just start sharing about what is reincarnation?
How would you prefer to do it?
I like the interaction.
Well, that's great,
Good.
because with anyone that comes onto Sacred Segments, I always ask them to be as interactive as possible. So I think that's great that you do that. Let's keep that open then, and let's just be open to questions as they arise.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I kind of start again with the theme of our call is the benefit of past life or future life regressions into the soul evolution. So, And I would say the main one, the core one for me would be that once you remember, and not just think, but just like as we share, just that knowingness in your body that you have had other bodies, not just human, but it could be also extraterrestrial or another gender. You have been men, women, uh, all of it. Then when you know, you just don't imagine, you know it in your body, in yourself, then you know that you are eternal. And then when you know you're eternal, you don't identify so much with the little stuff here. You know that you are free. You know that you are God. And that is freedom. Yeah.
I have had experiences where I have been able to look at a person and I see their other lives. It comes to me in flashes, not all the time, just moments, you know. It's like a download where I suddenly see like the energy package of their other lives, and I just know it.
Mhm.
Does that happen to you? Have you experienced that?
No, I feel like we all have different gifts, and different talents. And I see that yours is reading the energetic field of the person. And then you can actually tap into you could call them Akashic records. Some people call them the Akashic records, that you can tap into another person and see where the other lives. I don't see that. I actually very much my gift is I take people in journeys. I take them into deep meditation, and I go with them, I journey with them to that timeline. And when I'm there with them, I can see it at the same time. But they are the ones that take the journey with me. They're their higher self, or this their oversoul, take us to that timeline that needs to be addressed at this specific time. So that's how it works.
Is this shamanic work?
Some people would call it shamanic, and I could see that actually that's what the shamans did.
Yeah,
Throughout centuries, they will journey. They
yeah.
will journey with their patient, with their people that wanted to bring facets of healing uh, into this incarnation.
Now, when you had that experience with your patient, when you were operating on their nose, did you maybe pick up some kind of energy from that patient? Um, were, were you not shielded enough to protect yourself? What do you think happened in that moment?
Yeah, I have asked myself that a lot. That was actually what catapulted me into doing this work. And actually, this, now I'm absolutely grateful for. He was my angel, this patient that awakened me to the knowing that there was more than that can meets the eye. There's more than what you can see with your limited vision. So yeah, so what I feel, my field, as you know, everybody has a different blueprint or energy signature, talents and gifts. I'm a very permeable, my field is very permeable, very fluid. And I didn't know that at that time because I was trained as a medical doctor, so I did have no idea about energy fields or any of that. So my field is, yeah, permeable. That's how I think you can describe it the best. So it can pick up things from others and the environment. And I still have a very sensitive to that. If I go to stores or antique stores, especially, I get really drained because I start picking up all this energy. So and at the same time, I know that is in my training and my strength and be aware when I go to these places is to pull my energy feel inward and close it, and so I'm not picking up so many things from everywhere. And the same when I'm working with someone, I am holding my field and very, very strongly.
That makes sense. Yeah. So sorry to go back to this, but when you did the procedure on the man, and you saw the change in him in terms
Mm-hmm.
of healing later on, so
Mm-hmm.
do you think that the energetic blockage or whatever it was that you worked on, that was what shifted him, you know, that it was he was holding that energy blockage, and you helped him shift it?
Exactly, exactly, and it's a very good point, Alexis, because if we, medicine, traditional medicine has forgotten about the energetic body. And that's actually what they call the causal body, causal,
Causal.
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 Yeah.
There you go. I have an accent. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
What does
thank
that mean, causal?
or radial body. They also call it the radial body. So that means what that means is that the blueprint, what that means is the morphogenetic field. What that means is that when you have credit card, you see the logo, that's actually holographic projection, right?
Yeah.
So our bodies actually are holographic projection of a blueprint. Okay, so what we're seeing right now is the holographic projection. So it does not make any sense to go and fix a TV or the projection. You got to go and fix where it's being projected. um
Right.
it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? So we have forgotten about that. So to be really efficient and go to the root of what's happening, you gotta go first to the causal body, to the radial body, which gets affected, and we can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on here. But
Well, you've touched on a really, really important point here, and I just want to explore it for a minute, because
sure.
I'm going to relate it to myself, right? I have a lot of weight. I'm carrying a lot of weight, right? So I was named after my grandfather, and I always felt that I would carry his genetics, right? And for the longest time, I've thought to myself, you know, there must be a way where I can bypass the karmic energy, you know. And I've visited doctors in the past twice. I went through the whole kind of journey for liposuction, not liposuction, the gastric the gastric bypass, right? And I thought, I really explored it, you know, and I went through therapy and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, but that's not going to address the root cause, because it's a spiritual thing, right?
Yes,
So
yes, you know.
say again.
You know it. You are on
Yeah,
the you're right on the money.
right. So right now, what I'm doing, I've completed a load of different types of therapy with different people. But right now, what I'm doing is working with something called the Gabriel method, that is about visualization and about visualizing this kind of vortex of energy where every morning and every night, every afternoon, you do this visualization where you imagine your vertebrae lighting up, and you imagine this vortice of energy where all of the fat cells go into it. And I'm kind of working on the energy body to make the shift energetically. Whether it will manifest, I don't know. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think, you know, perhaps as a plastic surgeon, you made that link as well in that moment when you were working with that person, that you realized that there's that whole backstory, or that, like your TV metaphor, right? You can't work on the picture, you have to go behind.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't go back to being a plastic surgeon.
You won't.
I wouldn't. No, I would not.
Okay.
It's then you see, and I saw it back there, you do the liposuction and the person, you don't address the root cause, that person gains the weight, they come for a second liposuction, maybe even a third time, even a fourth time, and then it's never ending. It's never ending. So that is definitely not the solution. And you see it with the bypass gastric person, unless it's a very major, like very aggressive surgery where they take half of your stomach and really cut it off. Then if it's just a bun, a lot of times just the stomach expands and it goes back to the same thing. So that is really, if it could work if you do at the same time the root cause. And sometimes even if you do the root cause, you wouldn't need. I'm not against medical procedures. It's just that it can be done in combination with the part which is your taking into consideration your energetic body, your emotional body, your mental body, all of them. So for you, there is a key here, which you were telling me that you said you were named after your grandfather.
Yes, it's a very Greek tradition. I'm sure they do
Yeah,
it in Colombia or in other
they do it
countries.
in South America. My my grandfather, my father, and my brother has the same name,
Yeah.
and I'm not. But yeah, so the thing is that was he very similar, like in physical,
Yes.
you
Yeah,
know,
well, maybe not looking, maybe not the way we look, but
body type?
he was big. Yeah, like me.
Yeah. So then we go back, then we can go into this past life regression into what is called ancestral healing,
Mhm.
which, as you know, of course, we are inheriting the genetics.
Yeah,
That's
and
genetic.
epigenetics, right?
And they're right, and now we know the genes, the genetics are not fixed.
Yeah,
We have something that Greta was talking about, was it Bruce Lipton talk about epigenetics
yeah.
and how we now know is science that we can alter our genes in this very moment. They're not fixed. That's what is epigenetics. So that is something that you can do, and going into a journey, shamanic journey, connect with your lineage and see what part of that lineage you agree to heal in this time.
Uh-huh. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, I've got a couple of questions for you, and please butt in anyone that thinks of anything. Um, when somebody has an issue that they're dealing with in their life, whether it's like your friend Carl, that's dealing with cancer, or whatever it is, it could be a problem that you've had yesterday with somebody that you encountered at the supermarket, or whatever it is. Do you believe that everything is preordained and is meant to happen to teach us a specific lesson, or do you think that it's more malleable? That's the first question.
Mm. Well, definitely, that's a deep question. Thank you for asking that. It goes back to quantum physics. I don't know if you guys remember the string theory, where everything that is observed is changed by the one that is looking at it, right? So that means that everything that is happening to you in your reality, you are creating by you observation. If you know the string theory, you could see the pens of the observer, they will see particles or waves. So that means that you, in every moment, us, we are changing what we're seeing by our where we're coming from, for our filters. So that means that nothing that happens is random, meaning everything you are creating in your own holographic projection, which means that we are absolutely 100% responsible for what happens in our projection.
I believe that totally. And you know, it really pisses a lot of people off to hear that.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. But it's science. If you put it in from a science perception, you cannot argue with science. But you know, that's where I like to merge both things right now. You know, I like to merge science and spirituality, because for me, now that I can see from the higher perspective, they're not separate. You know, especially with quantum physics, they're not separate. Science and spirituality are the same thing to
You
me
know,
now.
how do you explain to, you know, a child or somebody that's been systematically abused, you know, that you know, that they're responsible for everything that happened? They would argue with you till you're blue in the face.
Oh yeah, and I used to argue myself, even though knowing the science, because sometimes when I would be in the wave tsunami of emotions, my frontal cortex will not function. And I will just shut my rational mind, and I will go into tantrum saying, this is not fair. You know, I had fair happening of challenges in my life, and if you would find me in those moments, I will I will say, you know, forget about science, or I would say this is not fair. But you know, this is a deep question, because I would say that a lot of people have this issue of child sexual molestation, let's just call it like it is. That's the main argument for people, say they did not choose to be sexually molested. Yeah, that's a deep topic, because I was sexually molested as a child, so I can speak from my own experience. And it had taken a lot of years to heal this in a very deep core. And it was not an overnight thing, I would say years of really digging deep into the truth, as layers upon layers. And finally, I was able to forgive myself and the whole situation, because I know I programmed it before I came into this life
Wow.
for a purpose.
Like an awakening. Well, there's
So I'm glad you said that, because that kind of qualifies what we were saying earlier, that everybody creates their own reality through their perception. So
Yes.
you know, I think there are some programs or karmic lessons or themes that we set up prior to incarnation, and they're going to come in. But what is definitely true is, depending on how you perceive and how you respond, you're going to create your reality and how you're experiencing and responding to that event. But I would take issue, going back to that same thing, that, you know, that everybody, what they create in front of them is always caused from their own kind of here and now thoughts, processes. Because I think in the case of children, that's definitely not true. But there might be karmic things that are causing certain things to be part of their life's lesson, that they have to then deal with and understand through that experience the broader power of their mind and of their own integrity and sovereignty and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
before,
I
it just
agree.
sounded like you were saying that like that we are all responsible for everything that happens to us, which you know, I don't think is entirely true.
Yeah, I know that is a very highly controversial, and I think we can agree to disagree. I feel that's where we can come into a peaceful, and this is lovely, that we can have discussions where we have we are
I would agree that like what
welcoming
you said,
different
you
perspectives.
know, it was part of your own choice before incarnating, but from your current incarnation, it was not something that you chose in your current, you chose it prior to this
Yeah,
incarnation.
you know, you could say because where everything is happening simultaneously, but I would say to expand a little bit of this, and the reason that we are higher purpose that we are here in this collective dream, which I call it a collective dream, which is this earth reality, is to awaken ourselves through the truth of who we are, which is our eternal God self. And this is a perfect environment for us to remember that, which is through contrast, through pain and suffering. And then we can get that. That's like a alchemical catalytic way for us to awaken our consciousness. And I wouldn't have been able to awaken my consciousness if something that extreme would happen into my life stream. And I would say the way to remember the God self, the truth of who you are, which is your eternal self, which is God, is relinquishing that the victim, that we are victims and that we are just uh what is the
Like
word,
on the other
just like
side of the like the stick, if you like. You know, it's like we are the power. We are the beginning of the power, and we are the end of the power, and we're both ends of the stick. Maybe I'm not explaining it properly.
yeah, we're like the alpha and omega. I think that's what you mean. We are the
Yeah.
alpha and omega. We're the end and the beginning. We're everything. So, and the practice here in this collected dream is to remember who we are while we are in the dream. And the way to awaken from that dream sometimes is through contrast. I would say most people awaken through extreme contrast, and that's what happened to me. Maybe in the future, maybe soon we'll have, kids that will be awakened right from the get-go, and they want to have that extreme contrast to awaken themselves.
There's a
But that's
member. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a member of this community who has been on Sacred Segments in the past called Anna Lee Stone. It's why I was looking at my phone to remember her name. I knew it was her name's Anna, but we have more than one Anna. This is Dr. Anna Lee Stone, and she's a professor of metaphysics, and she's done some research into psychic ability, and she's been on quite a few different Sacred Segments. And as a child, she witnessed her father kill her mother. And there were two other people that also had their fathers kill either their mother or maybe their aunt. It's a close family member, and they were all on together, and it was extremely healing. Anyway, in her research, Dr. Anna Lee Stone found that psychic ability is linked to deep trauma, and it's a type of awakening. And she calls these sufferings like the initiators. They are the initiators of awakening, and that's exactly what you described, in your
yeah.
contract.
Yeah, exactly. That part of having that deep betrayal from my closest family members made me look within and led me to look to my real parents, which is the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, which are my real parents. And these biological parents here were just playing a role. Actually, they're not my parents. They're just right now playing that role here in this collective dream. And that's another level.
Yeah, that really emotionally moved me, what you just said, and I was
Mm.
aware of being of light stood behind you when you said that. There was a being of light that came into your room. Greta, is there something, because I'm aware that you need to go in like 5 minutes, is there something that you want to say, or you know, question or something to Dr. Giovanna or to all of us? Is there something you want to share?
I really appreciate Dr. Giovanna's scientific approach, and I took this a few years ago. I took this course with I think he's a physicist or something, Dr. Larry Farwell, and he wrote a book actually about like the science, the physics behind manifesting your reality, and it aligns very much with what you're saying, Dr. Giovanna. So I just want to appreciate your how you're wording things and how you are looking at how we manifest our reality. And I think it is hard to kind of stomach the fact that we are, I don't want to say responsible, but we do all create our reality. And just like in every moment, how you perceive your reality is determined by the filters in your mind or your beliefs. And what we manifest is also determined by our beliefs and our feelings and our thoughts. So that said, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility to take for your reality, but it's also a lot of power.
Yes. Yes, exactly. You know, I feel that's the key right there, what you just said, because I felt exactly like you know, I was like not the biggest proponent of taking all the responsibility. But when I finally realized, and it was you know, it was one of those moments when it was almost like a life review when I was still alive, saying, oh my God, I created all that drama. I created a lot of drama, a lot. And I was like, oh my God, if I created all that drama, imagine if I just flip it. Oh my God, like I'm very powerful, right? We are like we are just like we just need to flip this, flip
Yeah.
it. Oh,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted to say as well, is that, and you hit the nail on the head, Greta, but you know, it's incredibly empowering, you know, on the other side of the spectrum of being disempowered. It's like, oh, I'm completely responsible. That's heavy, right? It's so heavy to carry. However, it's also a massive amount of power, because it means that you can change it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's up to you to create a new version of reality.
It's up to us, and the more the merrier, right? That's how we get to what they call the critical mass, you know, of the, I think it's called the 100 monkeys effect. You know, I don't know if you guys know about that one. That it was I don't remember exactly how it was, but you know, it's something like the monkeys, if 100 monkeys learn how to wash the potatoes, then all the other islands, even if they don't have contact with those monkeys, they will learn that behavior.
Yeah,
It's called
they observed that. That's exactly right. They saw that happen on different islands.
Oh, well, like it goes into the kind of field.
Into collective consciousness of the monkeys, and all of a sudden these monkeys on these other islands started washing the potatoes as well.
That reminds me of the birds. You know, I watched this documentary about these birds, which they migrate, right? It's a town in Europe on the border of France. I think it's Alsace, where the Alsatians come from, and they kept the birds in the prison, or not in the prison, in the cage. Thank you, Greta. Great to see you.
Hi, Greta. Nice to meet you. Have an amazing rest of your day, evening.
Likewise. Bye.
They put the birds in cages and stopped them from migrating. And they realized after observing them, if they do that for 3 years and they just give them food instead of letting them migrate to Africa from France, they won't migrate anymore after 3 years. So they modified the behavior. And it reminded me of that with the monkeys, you know.
Yeah, so that means that everything we do affects the collective, and it's the morphogenetic field it gets affected. So the more of us that remember that we are creators of our own reality, then we like the 100 monkey, then everybody starts switching on.
Right. The other question that I wanted to ask you is this: if you were going to distill all of your experience and put it in a kind of capsule, you know, I'm talking about your spiritual experience and your learning of the reincarnation idea, you know, how would you encapsulate it? I know it's a big question.
So you're asking, I'm gonna just understand what your question is. How did I come to the knowingness of reincarnation?
Yes, I think that's what I'm asking. Yeah, I wasn't 100% clear until you said it. Yeah, how did you understand that it's a like a reality rather than a theory for you?
Yeah, yeah. It started as an experience, and I would say that's why I feel for this kind of remembrance is not somebody coming to you and say, oh, you were Cleopatra and you were King David or whatever, someone giving you a reading, because anybody can do that. But when you actually have a physical body experience and you remember that, then that's for me the difference. Then you have the experience, nobody can take that from you. And I had several of those experiences. And I would say the major one for me, yeah, several where I have body reaction, body recognitions. And I would say the main one was when I was walking in the south of France just a few years ago. And just walking in those lands, that also the land holds the memory. That activated the memories in my DNA, and I started having flashes of that lifetime as a Cathar. And it started very unsettling. Actually, I just got to the south of France and I was starting to having panic attacks out of nowhere that I could not understand what was going on with me. I could not even drive. It was that paralyzing. Um,
Because
Actually,
they murdered the Cathars, right? They killed them.
yes, they were persecuted by the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
or they were the holders of the teachings of the law of one, which is teaching about the unity consciousness.
Yeah. The
Uh,
Roman.
yeah, and they very much hold the same for the mother creator as the same as the father creator. They were holding both, especially holding the mother aspect of creation in their teachings. And so they were blind heretics, and most of them were burned alive. Um, so yeah, so walking on those lands activated those memories, and I remember being there and being burned alive, and I in that remembers I did die with terror. So I, with the help of my teacher, I was able to go journey into that timeline and hold the space for myself there and remind myself that I was not dying, that I was just changing form.
That's amazing. Really amazing. I did have another question, but it's escaped temporarily.
Do you remember which particular part of there in in France? Like, was it one of the particular castles in the Cathar region, or?
Yeah, you know what? I don't remember specifically the town or the castles. I don't. Um, no, I just remember very much that the area is the Languedoc. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Languedoc region.
I remember my question. So if you encounter somebody that says, you know, what relevance is my past life to now? You know, I'm living now.
Yeah,
Why is it important for me to remember yesterday when now is the important moment?
that's a good question. And again, I will explain it as saying you are a multidimensional being. This is not your only existence right now. If you expand your consciousness to your multidimensionality, you will know that you are, like Jesus said, you are all gods and you are all able to do more than I did. So then you will know that you are this, if you tap into the multidimensionality, you can even tap to your future self, your very advanced beings, and you are, you will tap into gifts and talents that are just dormant.
That makes sense.
I mean, you wouldn't like. I was just kind of a little bit astounded by your question, because it'd be like saying, you know, you should not remember any of the kind of lessons you learned 10 years ago. It's the same. It's the same. We all benefit from all the experience that we've accumulated, whether in this life or in the others, and you want to bring that knowledge and wisdom with you. So I wouldn't see it as being any different to like stuff that happened to us 10 years ago. You wouldn't want to say, well, that's all in the past. I mean, yes, it's in the past, but we learn from all of that,
Have you heard of the belief that the reason that we don't remember our other lives is to protect us or our consciousness, and that it would traumatize us, or to remember?
Kind of, but I guess my take on it, what I've heard, is that it's not so much protect us, but to actually enable us to navigate the current lifetime, let's say, without
Like to do the work? Is that what
pardon?
do you mean, like so that you do the work and that we're somehow like asleep and that
Yeah, because sometimes, like, if you have somebody whispering in your ear saying, oh, like it's going to be like this, then you're kind of giving away some of your power. Your decisions aren't based on what you should truly be feeling in the here and now. So I think it's more from that reason we've come into each lifetime to learn more about ourselves, about our own spiritual aspect, about love and all the other things. And if sometimes we don't have the freedom to, like, see things through new eyes, then we're going to kind of hinder ourselves in our own way and fall back in old patterns, maybe, if we're not emotionally and spiritually strong enough to recognize the old patterns and not be influenced by them. Then we need to have a way of shielding them from us, so that we're, whilst we're still in our adolescent stage or whatever, or not spiritually evolved enough, we're not tainted by those.
I think you are touching something very key here, Carl, because you talk about immaturity, and then we can call it to spiritual maturity on that regards. And actually, I don't know if you guys know that just recently Pluto is moving into Aquarius. So actually that means that we're leaving behind the a spiritually mature self, where we're looking outside of ourselves for a savior. The age, of course, we are our own savior. And now we're mature enough that this is a part of the
Not
evolution.
everybody.
Right, exactly, Carl, exactly. And that is a good point because we think, you know, we can be so romantic saying everybody's going to make the chef. No, everybody has a choice.
Yes,
Everybody,
and we've got like, you know, some people learn faster than others, and
right, right. It's free will. That's where we are in this construct. It's free will. Do you want to go and evolve, or do you want to just stay and repeat the story? Just free will. So, but the ones that we are awakening, saying, yeah, then we want to make the leap, then we are taking that spiritual maturity and saying, yes, we want to remember all of who we are. We want to remember all our multidimensional selves. And we're preparing our consciousness to be able to hold that.
Okay, so can you explain? I'm sorry that because I think I called you Dr. Giovanni, and I know you're not. I know. So my
well, I've
apologies.
heard you say Giovanna before, so it was most of the time I've heard Giovanna. So
I know. Well, Dr. Giovanna, tell me please, what is the danger in remembering, or is there one? You know.
You know, that's a very interesting thing, danger. I would say, like my teacher says, you know, you wouldn't want is instant alignment. You wouldn't want, it's not advisable.
Eating a whole fish all at once.
Yeah, just get it all at once is not advisable. I wouldn't recommend that
yeah,
at all. At all. Unless you know, I think like everybody knows about Eckhart Tolle, that he had an immediate awakening and he was sleeping in the bench for many years. I don't think many of us would like to do that. So then, yeah, we want to take it slow, baby steps. So, as you know, at the same time, this consciousness is like voltage. If you would, it's an analogy of voltage. So you gotta expand very slowly your energetic body to take more voltage, and otherwise you will fry your circuits. So yeah, it has to be taken in a very
So
conscientious pace.
I got you.
and I guess Alexis, what you're kind of asking is, if you go for a past life session,
Yeah.
you're not going to be downloaded with like zillions of past lives in that one session. Your higher self will be part of the, I guess, the process, and will ensure that what you're encountering in that session will be what's appropriate and what you're ready for in that stage of your
That's
development.
exactly what I was going to
Okay.
ask you. Yeah, in a session, like what, you know, what would that experience look like for
Yeah,
anyone?
because sometimes they can be quite emotionally triggering. In my experience of my own ones, I found them emotionally triggering because
You have a
I
loss,
felt,
right? There's a sense of loss, maybe, or
well, I
disconnect.
felt it was a strong sense of letting people down, or letting myself down in more than one.
You will probably experience the traumas or the separation of.
No, I experienced the sense of, you can call it guilt or disappointment or strong regret of that I had felt I had failed in what I should have done in that lifetime.
Mm.
Okay, so
And
can you walk me through, Dr. GiGi, you know, what would obviously everybody is unique, right? Yeah, but you know, can you paint me a picture of what it might look like?
Yeah, sure. I can paint you a picture. So, like Carl was saying, which is, thank you for sharing that, Carl. I think that's super key, is that the one that is in charge of the journey is the higher self.
Your higher self, my higher self, who?
Both, both.
Okay.
But as I am holding, my higher self is holding the space for you to journey to that life. And I do call your higher self to be part of that, like Carl was saying. And the higher self has a obviously higher intelligence that knows, it knows what's the best for you to integrate and what, how much, and where to start. So there is a complete trust in that regard, because we're not letting the personality, the ego saying, oh, I can take it, give me more. No, we're giving the higher self that the leading role here. So we go both with that intention. So when we join in that intention, it is done. It's that powerful. So then we go together as a both higher self into that timeline, into that deep meditation. And when we get there, like Carl was saying, it's experienced with both perspectives. This personality here, the personality in that life, it could be quite emotional at the same time. You're seeing it from the higher perspective, where you, and that I remind you to do that. You're saying you're watching that as a movie. You are here safe. So you can experience all those emotions, but you will still experience it, but not as gripping as how it was in that life. So you're able to almost get an observer viewpoint and get the bigger picture of the lesson that you wanted to learn from that experience in that life.
In this life.
In this life and in that life, and how to apply it right now, because most of the time that those past lives that we go with the higher self wanted to take us there because we are replaying the same pattern. And
So,
so
like you said in your biography, you mentioned sexual addiction, for example. So, if somebody's playing out, sexual addiction in this life, how is the healing? What happens? Why? What is it?
yeah, so with the sexual addiction, interesting you bring that up, because most of the time it's childhood trauma, and it's sexual childhood trauma most of the time, 99%.
Yeah.
But the person, and I know that from my own experience, as a coping mechanism, you block those memories, and then you go on and play them out, as in many ways. Doesn't have to be sex addiction, it can be as drug addiction. Really does not matter what kind of addiction, but sometimes it can be a sex addiction. But really, like Gabor Mate says, it's not about why the addiction, it is why the pain. So once we go to the pain, which is ch- childhood trauma, then that's the beginning. Then from childhood trauma, we can go into the in-between lives and say, what is the purpose that you agreed to have that sexual trauma or childhood trauma, like in myself? And then it's not an overnight, like we said, it's not instantly them, it's layers upon layers. And I have done the work now that I was able to go in between lives and know what was the purpose for that and come to that deep peace. And it's taken me many, many years to get that. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you.
It's nice to hear you talk about the in-between life aspect of your work as well, because I think that brings an extra powerful overview and insight to the process, to be able to take the client there and to be in that kind of review stage. So thank you for mentioning that. Pardon?
You do the same work, Carl?
I haven't done for a few years, but I have trained in it, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, past life.
Yeah, and because when in my training, I was always ready to volunteer to know what the experience was like. So I have my own experience on the client side as well, from
on both sides of carrying out the healing and receiving, right?
Yes, and in one case, the in-between life bit was well, it was like just after passing over, and it was very interesting that the guilt that I felt on my passing, it didn't just disappear when I passed over. It took quite a while, even in spirit, for me to be able to release it. And even when because I remember it's like when I was welcomed by my soul family and blah, 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 you know, it took them quite a while to help me to not separate myself, but to, you know, to understand that, you know, what we set up in spirit to experience in the physical is important, but again, it's not who we are. It's a stage in which we learn more about who we are, and so, you know, you shouldn't then conflate yourself with the actor, you know, and even you take on the role. When you go back to spirit, you have to, you know, it sometimes takes time to relinquish that role and regain your true self again.
Yes, when we are not our trauma or our experiences, we are separate from they're just our experiences. Or our
Yeah, well, no, we're not. But I guess the point I'm making is that the emotion that we feel can be very powerful and can resonate across the dimension, you know, quite easily. And it's something that we shouldn't kind of not belittle, but we should be remember that, you know, those emotions can be very powerful and need to be dealt with in a holistic and kind of respectful way, because they don't
what I'm listening to you is that life that you're sharing was so impactful for you, was so jarring to your being, that you took, in the spirit world, you took even some healing to do, even on the spiritual level, for you to recuperate from that trauma.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that even remembering that life had to be quite impactful for you. And to also remember that you had to need a lot of spiritual support for you to heal at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I feel that there is a very important thing when the consciousness when we died, is that if we died with fear or guilt or any of those, that gets imprinted at the moment that we died. That's why when I died as a cath in the catheter, I died with panic, and that's why I had to go back to that moment and rewrite that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
you know, that is almost, you can call it past time traveling in one way, because I did the time traveling and remind myself at the time that, and hold the space for my own self, that I could die in peace, that there was no death, that it was just a transition. So I feel that is the part where we can help and assist each other to go into that in-between states and remind us that you don't have to carry that guilt in this life, that you can let it go. And the way that we do that is by learning the lesson that that life was all about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's interesting to observe your journey, Dr. GiGi, that, you know, you started as a physical plastic surgeon, and you've almost kind of transitioned to a psychic surgeon in a way, where you're helping to shape, you know, the spirit body through healing and through this work that you're doing. How, when you've experienced your training doing this work, you know, you must have received the healing first as well. Is that right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
did. You did.
Yes. Yes.
So you know what it feels like on both sides, right?
Yes. Correct.
And what was the takeaway that you had your healing?
Wow, that's a very powerful question. Yeah, again, it was not an overnight process. It was a building and a building and a building. And there's a word for that is escaping me. It's almost like the capacity of the light body of holding light, which is the same as information, cannot be, like Carl was saying, cannot be done like instantly. It had to be like, it has to be increased at a
Incremental.
mental pace. So for me, it was not an overnight. So the experience to receive that healing for me, from the personality level, there was many moments that did not understand what was happening, that it was extremely challenging, that many times I thought I was dying. But you know, like the Indian saying, you know, you gotta die 1,000 times, and it's true. And every time, you know, a part of me dies, it feels like that, I'm reborn. So it is, yeah, it's not sugarcoated. It's challenging, and at the same time, from the higher perspective, there's nothing else. It's absolutely worth it. You know, is what else can you desire than to know yourself as God? There's nothing else. There's
I had an image when you were talking just then of like a circle, as the whole being, and you know somebody breaks the circle, and you know a new, more powerful being emerges from that circle, but it's the same circle, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I was listening the other day to a video of, I think it's called the Gene 55, the Dragonfly Dream by Richard Rudd. It's on YouTube. And he so beautifully expressed that that's exactly how we're going, is with the metaphor of the dragonfly. The dragonfly molts, I think that's the word, molts, uh,
Mm-hmm.
several times from the stages from nymph.
From the chrysalis,
Sorry?
like the butterfly from the chrysalis.
Right. But from the with the dragonfly, it molts several times. I think it's I don't know how many times, a lot, and every time it's a different form, you know. But it's the same as the butterfly. When it's a nymph and it's living, and you know, underwater, it's never gonna imagine that at some point it's gonna crack open and expand some wings and fly.
Wow.
So, and you think you are just a nymph, you know, that you're scrolling.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with this. You think you're gonna die. You think that and then yeah, you die to a form. But that's, I think, again, going back to the benefit of past life, future regression, is that then when you know that you have been many forms, many shapes, you don't have such an attachment to this persona, this role that we're playing right now. I don't, you know, I don't take myself so seriously anymore. You know, like, oh, my name is Giovanna and I'm a woman. I don't take that as serious anymore.
Right. I also have the feeling that you described of knowing you. So I feel, you know, very connected to you in that way, that, you know, I feel like I know you. It's interesting. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. And, you know, perhaps we knew each other in another life. I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know, but I'm very glad to meet you. So in closing, you know, what would you like to say? This is to both of you. You know, what would you like to share or say that you haven't said already?
I would say the same thing that you said, you know, I think we can, I think, no, I know that love has no language, love has no words, it's something that you feel, and truth has a resonance. Is not about the words that you say, is the vibration. So for everyone that is listening right now, I would encourage just to feel, not think, not use the mind, just feel the resonance of the truth. And if that kind of, you know, like the resonance with, you see the instruments when you put, you clang a ball, then the other ones will start resonating. That's basically the same thing as truth. So if that resonates with you and you feel it vibrating in you, then that is your power, for you know is the truth, and you know it in your gut. That is my last message about that.
Beautiful. Thank you. And how can people find you and your work? What's your website?
Yeah, so I don't have a website. I have social media. I have Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and YouTube, and all of that. You can find me with my name, Dr. GiGi 369. That is basically Dr. GiGi 369 in TikTok and YouTube, and Facebook is Dr. GiGi. And yeah, and I will put the link in the sacred segments of
Thank
my
you.
Facebook, and they can reach out to me that way.
What's the significance of the 369? Is that the Nikola Tesla, who I love, by the way?
Yes, yes. So it has to do with the light body, right? So it has to do with activating your Merkaba vehicle. So, and there's this levels of consciousness that we choose to activate, which is the 3 and 6 and the 9. And when we merge all of them, then we are activating our full potential as the Christ that we are meant to be, all of us. That is our birthright to and potential.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much for awakening me into the deeper meaning and mystery of the 369, because I'm constantly questioning you know, Nikola Tesla's words and trying to understand them. And I've done a lot of research, but I've never heard it described that way. Awakening
Yeah,
the Christ self. That's really fascinating.
awakening the Christ itself and awakening our light body, and to be able to hold our multidimensional self.
Wow, gorgeous. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you. Thank you. And Carl, closing words.
Yes, no, I think everybody should feel that they have the ability to use like past life therapy, you could say, as an avenue to explore and get deeper insights to some of the challenges they might be going through in life, because it can be quite a revelation when, you know, to see what comes up, and then if it's dealt with by an appropriate kind of therapist, then they get to see the insight. It can help resolve a lot of confusion in their current lives, where, you know, they don't understand the parallels between what's happening now to maybe what happened somewhere in the past. And so it can be quite healing. So
Absolutely.
I you know, I wouldn't say do it, but I would say if people feel that they're, you know, they're not finding answers anywhere else, they should explore the possibility within their own minds to see if it's something that would be suitable for them.
Thank you. Okay, I always like to close with gratitude, and I'm going to also ask to say a power word just one word to connect with that represents a state of mind or a state of being. And I'm going to go first, and I'll go round to you, Carl, and then to you, Dr. GiGi. So my gratitude is for the evolution of our species and the unfoldment of our souls. I'm grateful for these things. And my power word is grace. Carl.
So my gratitude is for the teachings and insight that come through the actions and words of those people you meet, like on today's call. And I think my power word as a consequence is reflection, something we need to sometimes do more of to be able to incorporate the lessons and the wisdom that others pass on.
Thank you, Dr. GiGi.
So I'm very grateful to be sharing in community with Carl and Alexis and Greta now. We're still here. It feels so good to be in this container where we can share our gifts and we can share our hearts. And so I'm very grateful for that. And the power word that I would say that is coming right now, and actually it's not my mind that is saying, it's my heart. The power word would be unity. Yes. As one we walk. Yeah.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Thank you, beautiful souls. Really appreciate you. Lovely to meet you. And thank you for being here as well, Carl, and everybody that's watching. Thank you. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your evening or day wherever you are in the world. And let's do this again, please.
Yeah. So very nice to meet you, Carl. So very nice to meet you.
And you, Giovanna.
You too. Thank you. And see
Bye-bye.
you soon. Lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.